everybody, it's your old pal Todd Dammit, back to talk to another friend. Today's show brought to you by the fine folks at Honer Instruments, and especially Lanakai ukuleles. I'm one of the only rock and rollers playing ukuleles. Today we're going to be talking to a hero of mine and a very good friend, Clifton Collins Jr. He was in Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, HBO's Westworld, and a host of other films and TV series. Go ahead and IMDb him. You'll find all kinds of things. He's even directed videos for Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. I love this guy. We talked on and on and on. We had to pause like 3 times during the conversation. He's amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, Clifton Collins Jr. Clifton Collins Jr. I wrote a song about him just right now. Clifton Collins Jr. Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. You're too kind. Cliffy.
Yes, sir.
How are you, gorgeous?
I'm good, my man. Just having my morning cup of coffee.
Yeah, me too. The Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm having Canadian CFL coffee.
I love that.
The Canadian Football League.
I've got my homeboy industry.
Perfect. As you should. Craig. As you should. Yeah. Nice. I like it. That's amazing. So we'll touch on how we know each other. And that's, I think, you're another one of those people who
talk about a dating past.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, great.
I wasn't say too much.
I wasn't prepared for this. No, you're another one of those guys who just magically appeared. Like you're like part of the Slash. Like his friends just appear, and they will be on a bus with us for weeks at a time. And the funniest thing about hanging out with Slash is it usually means Clifton Collins and the Conspirators is what it usually means. It's kind of like, you see, you're there. We see Slash all the time, but he kind of like does his thing. And then you're hanging out with us. Let's go do this. Okay, cool. Let's go. And we just kind of wander off and do things together. And it's within like, the first 5 minutes, it's kind of like you've always been there. So it's funny to think about, because when I was thinking about it before I started talking to you, I was kind of like, how did I meet Clifton? It's kind of like, oh yeah, that was through that. It just seems like you've always been around in a way. It's fascinating. I remember saying to you, were you IL in the Star Trek film? I'm going like, why do I know this guy? And I go, you were in the Star Trek movie. And you go, yeah. I go, that just kind of blew my mind. Because it was kind of like, yeah, Slash's friend, he's an actor, he's coming on, okay, and then you're like, the dude from Traffic? Like it just sort of like all started to kind of fall into place. Like, because you're one of those guys that's sort of, I'd be watching stuff all the time and I go, yeah, sure enough, Clifton's in this movie. Like I'm always like, this is so crazy that I hear your voice and I go, that's totally Clifton. What is, and you're kind of like, there it is, there you are. So I just find it really fascinating to be, because like a musician, people always say, you're a rock star. And I go, no, I'm a musician, dude. I feel in some ways like my guitar, as much as I love music and it's who I am, sometimes I feel like it's my toolbox and I'm going to put some roofing on or perhaps some plumbing. It feels like, it's what I do as much as I have a passion for it. And that's what I think is really interesting about you is it's, you're probably the kind of guy who gets recognized. I remember going to a movie with you once and all these guys recognized you. I think they were like either police or security. I can't remember, but they were like,
that
remember
cop
that time?
in Texas that snatched my ass. Like
That's
I thought I was getting deported. I mean, I'm 4th generation American, but I still thought I was getting deported. Because he grabbed me. He was very, he manhandled my ass.
Yeah, he was like, and you were like, oh shit.
Like, dude, you're that guy. Like, come here. And he wanted to show me to his other cop friends. The cop was like, dude, don't.
What did he recognize you from?
I don't even remember, but I'm glad it was a movie and not like the back of a milk carton or a
yeah, a wanted poster at the post office.
Yeah, in his car.
Well, that's kind of like, so to me, what I find fascinating is how does a kid, you're one of those guys who's also beaten the lottery of like, you grew up in California. So you're already halfway there. You're at least there. Most people are like in Des Moines, Iowa, or, somewhere far away. And Wyoming, the trip to Los Angeles, the trip to Hollywood is half the battle, or it's the beginning of the battle. And you're just kind of like, where did you grow up?
Santa Monica, Culver City.
Yeah, so
Only Santa Monica, Culver City crew. Mostly.
So you're pretty much there, really. I mean,
pretty much. But then one can argue that, you know, it's like this whole argument about immigrants are coming over here to, you know, rape and kill. Like, you're not gonna bust your ass, risking your life, traversing the desert and the elements to get here and finally rape. You know,
you could do all that back there. Yeah, I mean,
you could totally much easier.
Yeah,
it's get away with it. And the cops might even help you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
the federales.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always wonder, you know, these people that do come from like Iowa or these other states. I mean, it's a big decision to leave your livelihood, your friends, your family, your social circles to go out and try to make it or go out and try to do it. So I'm always fascinated with people that do come out because, you know, it's easy to look at the flip side, like, oh, I've always been here, so I just took it for granted.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
it was always in my family. Yeah. So
you could be from California and be untalented, but you could be from Iowa and be very talented. So yeah, there's you know, there's that trade-off, of course. Yeah,
there totally is. And then also there's the you know, me having grown up in the business, it wasn't something to me that was unattainable in the sense of you know, I knew I had some resources to I could get some advice from somebody like my grandfather.
Yeah, to be clear, your grandfather, Pedro Gonzalez, is a legend in so he would have, what was his period of acting? Like, when was he active, like, in his life?
I mean, he started doing kind of like this Mexican vaudeville, so to speak.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it started at the age of 7.
Wow.
So, you know, just like Sammy Davis Jr., who also started at the same age, and they both were illiterate for the most part. You know, they could read a little bit. Yeah, they weren't just like fluid readers. So, you know, they were song and dance men. They were like real song and dance men.
That's so rad.
And then he didn't really start acting professionally, like in film, till he was 27 when he got to do the Groucho Marx show.
Right. That's so cool. So it comes to you honestly then, because it's in your blood, whether we want to, you know, agree or not. It's sort of like you've got it. You've got that kind of, but you were saying one time, you were saying that you're really the only one, and your grandfather was actually kind of bummed that nobody wants to be in showbiz. I've been doing this since I was 7 and nobody wants to do this. Yeah.
In all honesty, that's what led me more to acting than my love of films, was my love of my grandfather. Sure. And I saw how sad and depressed he was. Like, he was just down on himself. And he's you know, Mexican-American from Texas, but very passionate. So when he's depressed or talking about, you know, how none of the kids would follow in his footsteps or his grandchildren, it was with a lot of passion. So you really felt it, like, oh my God, my career, it's like, you know, all hell's breaking loose. I'm like, oh, poor grandpa. God, he's been telling me something like, God, how can I help grandpa out? Like, maybe I can employ my sister. My sister's a cute girl. Like, maybe she'd be great. And then, no, I don't want to do that. And my cousin was always considered like the good looking one. I was, hey, Chris, why don't you think about getting that? No, I don't want to do that. Let's just keep doing karate. I'm like, okay. And then it went on for a couple of weeks. And finally I said, Grandpa, I said, well, maybe I can do it. And he said, yes, you can. And I was like,
there you go. Yeah.
I just needed to hear somebody say, yeah.
Yeah, of
somebody
course.
Yeah. Because my mom said I couldn't do it.
Was she like more like she was making the rule you couldn't do it, or she just thought, no, you don't have, she was opposed to it? Oh, okay. Wow.
A little of both, but also,
but like I said before, sometimes you need that to light a fire under you. When people tell you can't do something, that's often where you go, like, I'll show them, you know.
I wanted it more.
Yeah, of course.
And then when my aunt and uncle, rest in peace, when they laughed in my face, I remember driving back to my grandparents. I was 17. I remember driving my little lowrider back to my grandparents. I had tears running down my face. Like, I'm going to show them. They think, he was like, our daughter has been auditioning and she's been on 30 auditions and it's only got one little gig. You think you can get something? I'm like, I'm not a cute little girl. I'm a totally different person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And my parents don't think I can do it, or my mom rather.
Yeah.
So the fact, you know, so that was a driving force. And then my grandfather, thankfully, provided the wedge. You know, he'd get on the phone like, no, why don't you let him do his thing? Why don't you just let him, give the kid a chance? Let him, maybe he's got something, you know, you never know.
So what's the process between, like, you've arrived at this decision, I'm going to do this. how far is it, like, how long is it between that till agents, till auditions, till all that stuff? Like, did you go into training? Did you, like, what exactly? Because you were already pretty disciplined because you were a martial arts guy, right? What kind of martial arts were you doing?
I was doing American freestyle.
Nice.
Under Greg Wilkinson, who was taught by Joe Lewis.
Great.
And then, and my cousin and I were real cocky, real fast with wicked spinning heel kicks. And we would defy the teacher's teachings a lot of times.
Really?
It's not going to work against the bullshit. It's not going to work. Bullshit. You know, like, are you sure it doesn't work about it? Because we just kind of made it work. I know we're 17. You know?
I imagine these kind of things all come into play later on when you're doing roles, and that training is probably like 100% a part of you.
They, like Small Town Crime, the film I did with John Hawkes and Robert Forster, rest in peace, and Octavia Spencer. You know, I remember the prop guy going, all right, well, you got some weapons in the scene. I'm like, okay, cool. What do we got? Opened up a trunk. I found a staff. I found a butterfly knife. I found a this. I found a that. You know, an AR, a gauge. I'm picking up all these things. And he doesn't know how to use all these things.
Wow.
A butterfly knife. Oh, you got chucks in here? You got new chucks? Oh, shit, dude. And he's just like, what? I can use all of these. Let's decide what makes sense for this character.
Amazing.
So,
yeah.
Because the directors are so enamored by the fact that I knew how to use so many of these, the scene ended up being slightly more, it has a nice comedic edge because now it's got me taking a bunch of shit from the trunk. Like, all right, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need that, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need that. What if I need this? And you know, Robert Forster has an old sniper. Right.
Which wouldn't have worked if you didn't actually know how to use all of those things, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then having somebody teach you the fluidity of a butterfly knife, like if you don't know how to use that,
dude, you'll hack a finger off. Yeah.
a lot of red bruises and pinches from the metal pinching you and all kinds of stuff.
No, thank
you. But to answer the question though, I knew it was something it wasn't something I was going to try.
I remember you saying you knew it was going to be hard, or you knew it was going to like 10 years of just hard work.
It's going to take some time.
Yeah.
But I got a lot to learn, and I'm young. Mm-hmm. I knew that. I had a cool job where I was making some good cash. And I just decided I took a couple months to think about it because I knew it was something I wasn't going to try. It was something I was going to actively go after, and just it's going to be a process. It's not going to be overnight.
Yeah, you're not going to be like, hey, I'm on Silver Spoons or whatever show was on back then. Boom, that's it. You know.
Yeah, Silver Spoons, that 70s show. 21 Jump Street.
Right, exactly. All those things.
The Commish.
Yeah, sure.
The original, the new Adam 12.
Yeah, right.
I did that, which was one of the main cops was Ethan Wayne, John Wayne's youngest son that he had with Pilar.
Amazing.
So Ethan's half Mexican, but he looks whiter than I look.
Oh, right.
Weird.
So you go into training. You take some sort of acting, I assume.
You know, that was one thing my grandfather was kind of against. Like, oh, Emil, you don't got to go to acting school. I was like, well, I think maybe I should.
Oh, interesting.
He was like, no, well, because he was self-taught and he came from the streets and he was able to outshine so many trained, successful artists, whether it was Jerry Lewis in his own film,
right,
who would reshoot scenes that my grandfather would improvise and redo it the next day with Jerry doing it.
I forgot he was in Jerry Lewis
I think that was Bottom of the Bottle. You know, no, Hook, Line, and Sinker.
Right. Okay. Sure. Wow.
Yeah. So I found some letters that they wrote to one another. It's amazing. In spite of Jerry taking a bunch of the comedic stuff that my grandfather came up with, he still was like my grandpa was still very like forgiving, loving, and cordial.
Sure.
There's no forgiveness at all. Just like business as usual. People still all the time. And I'm
it's all you put it out there. It's open for anybody to take, I suppose. Yeah.
And you're Jerry Lewis, and he knew he wasn't.
And you're Jerry Lewis, the top of the heap. Yeah. So you kind of do what you do.
Yeah. And so Jerry will, pick funny moments that my grandpa would just make up. So he would tell me, I was like, well, Grandpa, I think I should try some stuff. And he goes, and then he tried to teach me some stuff like, well, if you feel upset, you should be like, like doing his version of it. I'm like, well, that's cool, Grandpa. A lot of things that go into this, I would assume. I didn't know then. So I would slowly experiment with some classes, finally ended up at Stella Adler's.
Okay. Well,
and I took like a 6-week course with this one girl that I learned a lot, but she was just an egomaniac. Because, some teachers are truly born passionate teachers.
Sure.
And then there are other teachers that could be good, but if they're not passionate about teaching, then 9 times out of 10, bitter out of work actors, actresses that are not teaching because they can't.
Right.
Those that can't do teach, they say.
Right, and they probably aren't that thrilled when like the people that they're teaching go on to eclipse what they've been doing. I suppose that probably sucks for their ego. You know.
Oh, I watched this teacher just berate chicks all the time.
Really?
Make fun. It was terrible. I'm like, we come to you like children, going to parents for help, and when you bash somebody, and then I want to go out with my partner, and she's afraid to go out because she's afraid you're going to ridicule her because she's prettier than you or has a big audition that you don't have, or
exactly.
15 years younger than you. You know, it's
like that. You know, everybody has a little pilot light in them, and there's nothing worse than the people who try to blow out your pilot light. It's like, come on, man. It's like, you know, everybody's, you know, and like you say, the best teachers are the ones that make that pilot light just boom. You're going to go take this, and they're like a sensei in a sense, really. I mean, like you really have that kind of like, you know, you're trying to make these people grow and to be as strong as they can, not squash them somehow. That doesn't make any sense to me. So
I love teaching and coaching. I love it.
I know. Well, you're very good at it, and you have a background in that for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, but I'm passionate about it too, and also I grow and learn, and that's fun for me, selfishly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what is the process between? So then you take a course like that. How long is it before you actually? Like, is there like agents involved before you get auditions? How does that work?
Okay, that's a really good question, because I had somebody emailing me yesterday about agents. Like, can I drop your name? Tell them I know you. I'm like, I was never at that agency, so don't drop my name. He was, I got a friend that was there. Well, use that to get in. So with my grandfather, he set up with this meeting with this agency, a very small agency called the Mary Grady Agency. And Mary had a son that was on My Three Sons.
Okay.
Remember that old TV show?
Sure, of course, yeah.
I think it was the eldest son that was hers. So he sets up this meeting, and it takes like, you know, we're gonna have a meeting for you in August. Like it's like 4 months down the road.
Oh wow, okay.
I'm so ignorant. I'm like, oh wow, like woo, agent, big Hollywood agent. Of course I gotta wait, 4 or 6 months. It's a big Hollywood agent.
Sure, yeah.
In hindsight, I probably could have cold called and got that meeting, which
really?
I would do later. Later,
okay, yeah.
Cold call people and pretend to like, I'd make up some fake resume, like, I just got done working on some representation. So it was so ballsy and naive for me, wonderfully naive. It's that naivete oftentimes that gets you busting through the door because you don't have that little voice. You can't do this. You can't do that. That's not how it's done.
Sure, yeah.
That naiveness protected me.
Yeah, when you're young, it's a lot more like, why not? Why wouldn't I do this? Yeah, exactly.
You're hungry, passionate, driven. And slightly dumb, which is perfect.
yeah.
Perfect.
That's true, yeah. Perfect combination.
God.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a little bit more of that naivete back, that little dumbness, whatever you want to call it.
I know.
So
we kind of build that fear, don't we? Or the kind of like, it's almost kind of like a self-defense mechanism that says like, I'm not going to do that because that's not going to work out or whatever it is. But yeah, when you're young, it's perfect. Yeah. So you bust in. Fun. So do you actually wait 4 months for this meeting, or how does this work?
I do.
Okay.
I do. So in the meantime, but I had that little window of where I had to wonder if I was going to go after it or not. And in that interim, I was teaching martial arts with my cousin, and I had just these little signs popping up. Little kids I'd teach, or a random person in the street would stop me, or the guy taking my tickets at the AMC in Century City, like, hey, you look like this guy, or hey, you look like that guy. Are you an actor? So it just randomly, and I was telling my cousin this, and as we're giving this guy a ticket, and then he goes, dude, you look like William Dafoe. And I was like, dude, Chris, I told you, man, people are telling me. So I'm like, okay, I guess this is a sign. I'm like, hey, Grandpa, I want to do this. And he set up the meeting, sat down with the agent. They started sending me out on commercial auditions.
Just like that?
Commercial auditions. Yeah, like, McDonald's and English and Spanish, cornflakes commercials, you name it. I couldn't do alcohol because you had to be 25.
And how old are you at this point?
I'm 17.
Okay, so you're a kid. Yeah, okay.
So my first month, my first month of audition, I get Taft-Hartley, meaning that these people wanted me so bad for a commercial, even though I wasn't SAG, they were going to Taft-Hartley me, which is a big deal because they got to pay a fine.
Oh, okay.
And then you get to be in the union.
Oh, okay, I see. Wow, so it's kind of like a quick move into the industry to some degree, or to the union.
To the union.
Yeah. Okay.
And that used to be a really tough thing. And then things changed where you can like be an extra. And if you had like 3 vouchers on a giant film, then you can get in the union. But normally you just have to audition until finally. So that first month, and then my mom so didn't believe that I could do this. She actually thought I was lying to her.
Really?
my sergeant, like, how are you? Like, I've never been like a liar per se. Like, why would I lie about a job? Like, hey, I just got this new job at, IBM or whatever.
She's like, bullshit.
Pretty much. Like,
Wow.
Really? Oh, really? When's your wardrobe meeting? I'm like, oh my God, industry talk, Tuesday.
Oh God, yeah, right.
Grandpa.
Yeah.
And, grandpa, like, and I heard him in Spanish go, no, he got a job. He's got commercial. Da, da, da. So
Crazy.
she was like, whatever. And then 2 weeks, like, I want to say 2 weeks later, I got like 2 commercials in 1 week.
Damn.
And
so you really had an early like confirmation of this was the right call because it's stuff starting to happen for you. Okay.
I had
exciting.
early confirmation. That's a very good way to put it. And as artists, we got to hang on to any great achievement that we worked for.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean live in it, but just take it as a marker to, I can keep moving forward, because you'll have that dry spell too that'll make you question it again.
Sure. Yeah. So what are those initial experiences like for you? They're all fairly positive, or was there any kind of setbacky type moments, or were they fairly
all kinds, but you're young, so you're like a duck. It just rolls off your back. And also, I knew I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Totally. Yeah.
So part of me was trial and error.
Right.
Let me try this. Let me try that. Let me do something weird. Let me do something out of the box. Let me do something. And I actually got a Kellogg's commercial because I totally improvised. I went off page, which that's like a giant faux pas. You should not supposed to technically do that.
But you're kind of feeling like, what do I got to lose? Really, not get the gig? I might not get the gig anyway. Yeah.
And I did it, and everybody started laughing so much that they ended up writing that into the piece for the Kellogg's, and that led to a pilot audition, my first pilot test deal.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, a test deal, a pilot? What the hell was that?
I love that you're getting gigs that you don't even know what they are. You're kind of like, what is that? Now it's all like, exactly what it all is, but at the moment you're like, what's a pilot, or what's a Pretty much. So what did the pilot entail? Was there anybody of note involved in it that we would know?
The father from Blossom.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Was directing it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you're like, it seems like at that moment you're like, this is getting real. As of selling cornflakes to suddenly you're like working with people who've done stuff in the biz that feels legit. And
it was a post-apocalyptic TV show about this group of this 5 families that got to live in one house because there's been like a nuclear explosion. And it was a comedy, a sitcom. And
it doesn't sound funny, but I guess
like giant spiders that have mutated.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
And it didn't get picked up?
It didn't. And I ended up not doing it, I don't think. No, I ended up not doing it, but I got a test deal out of it, and it was a great experience. And I left my mark, and I got new fans from the casting directors and the producers. It was because I said something funny too that had everybody laughing so hard. Like they wouldn't stop laughing for like 10 minutes. It got embarrassing. Yeah, because I was being judged by like 10 executives in suits, in chairs, just staring at you, very stuffy, very unfriendly. But, just go ahead. You guys have any questions? No, go ahead. We'll find the show.
Oh, really? That sounds intimidating.
Yeah, I had one of those old bowling shirts that, the bowling, there's this phase where you'd wear a bowling shirt, but it couldn't have like Todd or Clifton. It'd have to have somebody else's name on it.
Yeah. Like you got it at a used store or something, yeah.
Yeah, and I did.
Yeah.
So he was like, Clifton, do you have any questions? I'm like, no, I'm totally cool. And I'm such a young actor. I didn't know what kind of questions to even ask at that point.
Sure.
And I was like, you guys have any questions? And this stuffy guy was like, no. And then the director / actor, he goes, yeah, I got a question for you, Cliffy. He goes, who the hell's Joe? He points to my
your shirt.
Yeah, and then my brain just goes, do it or don't do it. I'm like, do it. And I look down and I go, nah, that's just some guy I'm fucking. And there was a beat of a second and a half. That was a dead silence. But I'm thinking, oh my God, the ship just sunk. Oh my God, they didn't get it. Oh my God, half these guys are gay anyway.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then the silence just kind of ramped up the humor to the laughter because they were all uncomfortable and they couldn't hold it anymore.
Amazing.
Yeah, they couldn't hold it. So as soon as one busted, they all busted. The dam just broke and they laughed.
That's great.
So from that point forward, they'd always call me in for comedies. I'm like, we don't really think of you for dramas. We think about you comedies.
Interesting.
I'm like, well, and that's before I did like 187 and the heavier pieces. Totally. Now there's a slew of heavy pieces, but
so
it's just so funny.
When you start doing a pilot thing like that, this probably leads to the idea of like, once these people have seen you and once you have this thing on your resume, suddenly this starts to kind of really plant seeds that kind of grow elsewhere, because people look at your resume and go, oh, he's done this. So that gives you this legitimacy that kind of isn't just a commercial actor. You've actually done something of note. So I'm assuming all the calls start kind of happening around that.
Well, not all the calls.
Well, yeah.
Still
some of the calls. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little easier to pitch because, hey, my client just did this pilot, or my client's up for da-da-da. And I'm still at a very small agency, so you're still competing with the William Morrises, the CA, ICMs, the Gershes, I'm like literally bottom tier agency. Like my agency was both commercial and theatrical. I like did them both.
Oh, okay.
They were
there you
small
go.
in Burbank over here.
Oh, great! Wow.
Yeah. So, and then I started taking it a little bit more serious. I'm like, I should get into acting class because I didn't know how to like cry on camera. I didn't know how to tap into those emotions. I had a problem dealing with rage.
Really?
And I think a lot of us do until like we snap and then we black out and we end up like beating somebody up or getting beat up or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But 187 was an important film for me because it allowed me to both harness and express my rage for the first time.
There you go. Now, was that the first, so 187, who was in 187 with you again?
It was a film directed by Kevin Reynolds and Samuel Jackson.
Right,
Kelly
that's the
Rowan.
Sam Jackson.
Yeah, and John Hurd, rest in peace, was fantastic. John Hurd's amazing in this movie.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Lobo Sebastian, Jonah Rooney, who's now my brother-in-law.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how does that work going from, sort of that pilot into it's just a series of auditions till something like 187 presents itself? Something
like that. It's a series of auditions, and at that point you're younger. You start finding your little tribe, friends I'm still friends with today, like Jacob Vargas. And then Jacob and I were the kind of actors that we would always tell each other about auditions. Whereas I noticed most of my white friend actors would never I got a meeting. What fuck? They didn't want to stay. And I'm like, you guys are weird, dude. And meanwhile, like, hey, if you guys, if it doesn't work out with me, have you guys read Jacob Vargas yet? I would literally pitch him in the room, and he'd pitch me.
That's
amazing.
John
Sayed would fall into it, and I'd pitch John Sayed and Jacob. It was we're always keeping the family.
That's amazing. Yeah.
If I lost it and Jacob got it, or if I lost it and John got it, we always felt like we got it.
There you go. Yeah.
Sure, I could use some money, but my boy got it, so we got it. It always felt like that.
That's
awesome.
Always
rooting for your friends, not don't audition for that thing. But no.
Yeah, exactly. It's a secret, like a total secret that it's for you. Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah. I just called him yo, did you read this yet? You got to get in on this now. You got to go.
That's amazing. So what is the process? What was the first moment when what gig that you got where you felt like I might have arrived? This might be like.
Well, yeah, I think I was really cautious about the I might have arrived feeling, but I know, but
we all are, but it's sort of in there in the back of your brain going I can't believe I'm doing this particular project or whatever.
Yeah, well, always blessed to be working. Yeah. Always blessed to have auditions and a chance to perform, because if you're, and you can testify to this, because it's as long as you're performing, if you're a true blue artist, in it for the glory and not the fame. Fame's a byproduct and oftentimes gets in the way of our crafts. I think sometimes I've seen Slash be almost more passionate in smaller venues than the bigger ones.
I think so too. Yeah, I think sometimes.
Right. I remember some that we went to where they were just so crammed you couldn't go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
All of you guys were just fuck yeah. Whoa. This is a little atom bomb of rock and roll energy.
Yeah. I agree.
It's so condensed, and everybody's fuck yeah.
And you're so close to the audience. It's everybody's right there, as opposed to a festival where you're 50 feet away from the first row. It doesn't make sense. When your people are right there, it's just that energy. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you, so how long does it take before you're I imagine it's just kind of you probably got your head down, you're just going in, you're plowing through. How long does it take before you realize, when did you quit your day job? How old were you when you quit your day job?
I quit my day job a couple times.
Okay.
And I
as will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was never too big for my britches to go back to a day job.
Right.
It was like, oh, I can't. Well, I just played a lead in a film in Australia for 3 months. Like, yeah, but I'm running out of money, and I'm not Mel Gibson. You know what I mean? I'm still me, and I want no shame. And I like my friends at work, and I like the job, and it's fun, and
sure,
I can still audition. So who cares?
Of course, yeah.
So I quit in '91. I was 21, excited to go to Australia to do this sci-fi with Christopher Lambert.
That's so crazy. And that must have been bananas. Like, I'm going to Australia?
For the first time, 21, I'd never gone out of the country.
That's so cool, yeah.
Yeah, by myself to Australia, flying first class. I had a 2-bedroom apartment across from Surfer's Paradise.
Where was this? Where was the apartment? Sydney? Or?
Surfer's Paradise, Australia, Queensland.
Oh, wow. Okay, well then, yeah, you're living the real Australian dream there.
You're like 21, you're getting $750 a week per diem.
Per diem, yeah.
I'm like at 21, I'm like, dude, I'm a fucking millionaire.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I'm working every week I get $750, so I'm working most of the time. So usually I'm walking around with like $3,000 in my pocket. That's
yeah, of course, yeah.
So I got a check being sent home, and it was a small check at the time, but for me, I think I was getting like $2,500 a week. Which is like $1 million.
Yeah, still, yeah. Of course, yeah.
I'm not spending it. So
when you're 21, that's free money.
God.
Yeah.
Jesus. And I came home with a shit ton of Australian cash, which was rad.
That's amazing.
So, but then when I came back, I did Poetic Justice, and then
that's right. Yeah, you did Poetic Justice. That's crazy.
Menace to Society, and then
you did all those kind of. Now, do you think you're being able to speak Spanish and all that? Is that an added bonus in many ways as well? Or is that something that's a byproduct of?
It can, but that was still a time in Hollywood where there was less inclusion, and there was a lot more stereotypes, and there was less awareness of just the racist aspects of it all, and the stereotypes and things of that nature. But even for a film like 187, I'm playing a gangbanger. I had a lot of gangbanger friends. I still do. I mean, they're all adults now and have legitimate jobs and are very successful. They're artists.
Yeah, they're talented artists. Yeah.
Except for the ones. Well, actually, I had one in jail that I co-wrote a cookbook with, a prison ramen cookbook.
Yeah, I know. I have it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome.
We've used some of the recipes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. It's right on our. I'd have to ask the wife. I don't cook. She knows better than me.
A chili corn chip ramen pie.
That sounds delicious.
Write that one down. It'll be a staple. I'm just gonna warn you now.
So I'm just looking at at this list of I made just a quiet list off the top of my head of people that I know you've worked with. Mike Judge, who we've got to know. Guillermo del Toro, of course. Robert Redford, Alan Arkin, Peter Fonda. You did a CSI with Peter Fonda? That's insane.
And Boondock Saints with Peter Fonda.
That's right. That's Boondock Saints 2 you did. That's right, yeah. Samuel L. Jackson, of course, we know that. And then Joel Schumacher, who just passed away, which
rest in peace.
That was Tigerland you did with him?
Yes, sir.
That was insane. Tarantino, of course. Soderbergh, which is the big Traffic and all that. How old were you when you did? And then Abrams, J.J. Abrams, of course, we have him as well. But you did. How old were you when you did Traffic?
Traffic was right after Tigerland. I finished Tigerland, I want to say 2000. And then right from Tigerland, I went straight to Traffic.
Crazy. Yeah.
I went straight to Traffic.
Was that a big breakthrough for you? I mean, like notoriety-wise? Because it seems like, I think that's the first place I would have ever seen you. Because I remember going like, oh, yeah. I mean, because that was a massive impact of a film, I remember at the time. It was one of the first financially successful art films. So it really balanced art and commerce, which is really almost impossible to do. Sure. But both of those films were heavy, important benchmarks in my career and in my life just as an artist and a human, in that Tigerland gave me the opportunity to play a Southern boy from Louisiana. Right. And at that time, I was which you've kind of nailed over the years too. The Southern. I always see you and I go, he's no longer Mexican American. He's just some Southern dude that I'm terrified of. So the it was the third lead in this film for Schumacher, and Schumacher being the legend that he is. Again, I had two young junior agents that were new, so they're fairly naive to the stigmas of Gonzalez because I was rocking his name. Yeah, you were still playing. Yeah, how long were you using Gonzalez?
10 years.
So when did you? What was the film or project that you switched over to Clifton Collins Jr.?
I'd finished Light It Up.
And what was the impetus for that? What was the decision to change? Just kind of be your own man?
I thought about, well, yes, to be my own man, one, but two, the reason for changing to Gonzalez was to honor my grandfather.
I know, yeah.
Nobody remembers the old timer. Nobody honors this. Nobody honors that. I was like, Grandpa, I walked into an audition. They asked me if I'd ever acted before. I'm like, did you bring your resume? And his resume is divided by studio, like Columbia, Universal, RKO Radio, and the studios that don't even exist anymore. But his resume is so fat. My sister and I had to like, Grandpa, you can't walk in with a 5-page resume.
Right, you have to
or
condense that somehow.
Honestly, I think it was bigger.
That's amazing.
Because like Columbia, Universal, Warner Brothers,
like a phone book.
Pretty much. Like, we got to change all of this.
Amazing.
So you were saying, what were you saying?
Just when you switched to Clifton Collins Jr., when you changed your name, what was the project or what was the impetus to decide to become Collins Jr.?
So when I did 187, I lost my dad to a suicide, like 3 days before I killed myself in the movie. And
man, you had to actually go through that act in a film after dealing with that. Good Lord.
Yeah. And we shot the movie in sequence, meaning it went in order.
Right.
So you grow as actors, you grow as the characters, you grow as friends, you grow as in the story. It's linear.
Yeah, because for people who don't know that when you're watching a film, it's often shot completely out of sequence, and you as an actor have to be kind of like, so where am I now? Like, what? No, you're still happy at this point because you just met the girl, and you're like, but she already died yesterday when we shot this. It's like this bizarre like ping-ponging of emotion that you have to kind of play. So, but in this case, playing it linear must have at least felt like a natural progression towards the end of your character, I suppose.
It's almost like a super giant play, and you're reliving these moments over and over and over.
Totally.
So when he did that, I always knew he was unhappy when I changed. I went from Collins to Clifton Gonzalez Collins, and then I went to Clifton Gonzalez for Grandpa. Let me go full blown. And then when I lost Pops, I thought, well, maybe I should go back to my birth name now that my dad's gone. I know he was never happy about that. I'm like, well, why would I reward him for killing himself? Then I thought, I just got to do this when this is right. This doesn't feel right now. So I stayed with Gonzalez. I did Light It Up in '99 with Forrest Whitaker and Usher and some great cast members, Judd Nelson. And then I done Price of Glory with John Cena and Jimmy Smith, this boxing film. And that we were shooting across in Inglewood at the Forum there.
Yeah.
Big boxing. They set up a boxing ring and stuff. And my dad lived in a trailer park across the street.
Really?
Yeah. But he'd already been gone. So I was being kind of haunted by his memory, so to speak.
Sure.
And you couldn't get phone signals down there where we were, because we would stay where all, the artists or the sports people would be. So, and this is an older time. You can probably get a phone signal now. So I went outside and I got a phone call from the producers on Light It Up talking about, hey, we're getting ready to lock credits. We know your real name is Clifton Collins Jr. And I know you mentioned something about possibly going back to that one day. And I was being so haunted by memories of my father. I mean, obviously the trailer park's there. I see it going to work every day when I'm going to the farm to do the fights. Right. And I see his trailer and all these memories are coming back. I'm like, Also traveling, and this is obviously way pre-Trump, way Obama, pre-Obama, pre-Bush. Anytime you're traveling, when you have a SAG name or any different stage name, unless you're uber famous, they're like, wait a minute, who's Gonzalez? Me. Who's Collins? Me. Well, then who's Gonzalez? Me. It's like, and then, and then tax time, the IRS would always send me a notice for every gig under Gonzalez, because I was like, why? Like SAG, like, how did John Wayne do it? John Wayne's name was Mary. Marion Thorogood.
That's right.
How did he do it? Like, why isn't he like? So I was like, so I'd have to, for every gig I had to resend a copy of my Social Security, a copy of my driver's license, I think a copy of my passport to the IRS. So I found, with this COVID stuff, I've been cleaning out my garage. I found Xeroxes of all three together still from way back when.
Wow.
My grandma kept everything.
Amazing.
And when my grandma passed, I started going through all these boxes. I'm still going through them. And I'm finding all these cool things. And that was one of them, was the stack of that paper I used to fold. They were pre-Xerox. I got tired of doing it.
Hilarious.
So it was time for me to own my own name. Everybody knows who Grandpa is now. I did what he asked.
Totally.
He didn't actually ask me. I offered. I just heard him complaining.
Yeah, it was out of honor and tribute to your grandfather's legacy, essentially. Yeah.
And little did I know by changing it to Gonzalez that I wouldn't be able to audition for anything but Mexican or Cuban or Puerto Rican. I'm like,
yeah, you certainly have a lot of like stereotypes on your list of characters you've played. Vato, and all the names are like gangbanger kind of characters, but you, unfortunately, you were so good at that I can imagine it became like, who's good? We should get that Clifton Collins guy, because he nails this kind of character. But you obviously broke out of that pretty quickly.
But speaking to what you said, I was like, I recognized that I had something cool with the gangster characters. I had a lot of gang member friends I was hanging out with.
Yeah.
So I love stealing from all cultures and different peoples and societies. I love
acting wise, not actually stealing from them. Yeah.
One could argue.
Yeah.
So I was like, gosh, I know you guys think I'm so good at this, but how good could I be at these other things? I mean, you guys thought De Niro couldn't do comedy until now he's the go-to guy. They meet the fathers, meet the parents, He's hilarious. Yeah. He's a riot. And I grew up in all kinds of different cultures, Black, Latino, white, Filipino. So it was really frustrating in that respect. And I had no problem playing the gangbangers. And in fact, I was like, why can't De Niro play a gangbanger from his culture, the Italian culture, and get Oscars and accolades? But when I play a gangster from my culture, the Oscars won't look at me. The Alma Awards are like, that's a negative image. I'm like, sure. Oh, what is a mafia positive image?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are those good people? So why couldn't? And then I can't remember if it was Hollywood Reporter, Variety. They completely discredited me. They're like, oh, they picked up a gangbanger off the street to do this role. I'm like, it's called acting. I had to study.
In a lot of ways, that's actually the biggest compliment you could get. They thought you were an actual gangbanger. That's to me, like, that sounds like, well, that you nailed that, apparently.
I would agree with you there. It just doesn't help in the business side.
No, true. Yeah.
For more gigs.
No, it sucks. Yeah. So, the next step I was going to make was, I don't know what the difference, I'm trying to, like, chronologically, it's hard to follow because you have so much stuff on your list. But the next big thing for me that, like, but after Traffic, that really stuck out was Capote was such a success as far as, and you played Perry in that film. In the case of the story, you essentially are the guy that committed the murders that Capote is interviewing, and essentially end up being the focus of his entire passion for that project. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, I believe he won an Oscar for that film, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was that filmed in Canada?
Manitoba.
That's right. Winnipeg. Yeah, that's right. From where Brent Fitz is from. That's right. Yeah.
35 below zero.
Oh, I was gonna say it wasn't winter, was it? Because if it's winter, it's next level. So, but you played Perry, and what was that like? You must have got a lot of love for that, because that was quite a performance, I thought.
I did. That was a great opportunity, just auditioning for that.
Was Philip Seymour Hoffman involved in the production of that as well?
Absolutely. He spent 2 years developing that.
He did. Okay.
Yeah, and developing his pitch and getting shot down at studios and this and that. It was a big deal for Philip because his overall body structure wasn't. He's usually a heavier set guy, and then that's how he liked to be. He's like, look, I love eating. I love it. I love being slightly overweight.
That's who he was. Yeah.
My comfort spot. Mm-hmm. So he hated having to drop all that weight, and it was a big risk for him too, because he's got a very baritone, like deep voice when he's talking to you. So like for him to suddenly be way up here and like
he nailed that voice though. Yeah, he like nailed it.
We'd sit and watch interviews with Capote on like the old talk shows, and when he's sober, when he's drunk, when he's
amazing.
So yeah, we had a 2-week process. of auditions, and I got my hands on like 40 letters that they wrote to one another, Capote and Perry Smith, through Dan Futterman, the writer, who's also a great actor. And it was a heavy process, and I was, you know, the book In Cold Blood became a bit of a Bible. You know, if you look at my book, there's like notes on every page. Like I tell you, on page 125 it says da da da, or on page 206 da da da, or don't forget the reference. Like,
which is an interesting thing about you know, your work as an actor. It isn't just kind of like memorizing lines and going in and go, you know, I'm funny here, I'm sad here, I'm happy there. It's like you're one of those guys who's like, you know, you've been out with us before and you've got stuff and you're, what the hell are you doing? It looks like you're doing homework or a dissertation or some sort. And you're actually doing like, you know, you got a pen out, you're scribbling on it. I go, this is like really involved, and the work involved in that is impressive. And I guess it goes into your discipline of everything that you came up with, martial arts and everything else. But I think you're embodying a person, especially with Perry, who was a person who was a real person. You know. Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah.
I was right before we got to shooting. We got postponed a week. We got delayed a week, and they were like, Bennett Miller came up to me. He's like, "Hey, so we're gonna push a week. We're still shooting. Everything's fine. So if you want to go home now, you can go home and then come back." I'm like, "Go home from Winnipeg and then go and come back?" But I'm in the zone now. Like I'm in the zone. Like
you're gonna get right out of the zone if you go home.
What? Yeah. Why do you want to send me home? I got girlfriends there. I got buddies. I don't like. Can I stay here? Like, and if I can't, then I'll find some friends here to stay with. I need to stay in here.
Right.
Like I'm already in this heavy place, and this is the world that I'm more familiar with now because I've delved deeply into it. You know, I'm in Winnipeg, so I can't just get up and drive to my buddy's house or my friends or a girlfriend or whatever.
No.
So I remember sitting there with Chris Cooper one day, and we were having dinner at the producer's
amazing,
house.
by the way.
I just bow to him. I bow like, oh my God, adaptation. I mean, he's got so much work.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Lone Star,
dude,
which I watched recently.
Yeah,
him and LaTanya Jackson, Samuel's wife.
That's right. That's right.
She's a badass. She's just a force. And so I'm sitting with Chris, and you know, and he's having a little glass of wine, and he's like, "Hey, son," he goes, "I've been meaning to ask you." He goes, "How are you doing with this role?" And I was like, "Oh my God." It's Chris Cooper asking me a very serious question. I was really embarrassed to tell him, but I was like, I said, "Honestly, Chris, I've had quite a few breakdowns, bro. I'm getting, it's good though. I'm getting through it. But it, you know, I just have quite a few breakdowns." And he kind of looked at me and he looked down at his plate and fumbled with a piece of lettuce he'd had there because he was finishing up a salad. And I was sitting on the floor eating because I like the floor. So he squatted down to my eye level. And then he took a beat and he was like, "Well, son, this is the kind of role you're supposed to have breakdowns on."
That's true. Yeah.
I needed to hear it again. I needed to hear it. And then when I heard it, I was like Clint Eastwood at the end of Unforgiven. I was like, all right, I think I'll have that drink now.
Well, but how long does something like that stay with you? Because I know you're the kind of actor. I know there's been people who sort of, they treat acting like, you know, like a plumbing job. They come and they put in that sink. They don't ask questions about the sink. "That's the sink you want me to put in? Okay, here you go." And then they walk out the door. And even though they say that, I'm sure it still stays with them. But for you, Carrie, you know, somebody like Perry who killed people, did terrible things, and then okay, that's a wrap. Thanks, Clifton. Get on the plane back to Los Angeles. And you're like, do you find any sort of like, as you're crossing into different time zones, Perry's getting further and further behind, or does it just kind of hang around, some of these things?
They often,
not just Perry, but some of these other characters that you've had.
A lot of the other
ones. A lot of heavy
yeah.
characters, yeah.
Yeah, because not all my roles warrant that kind of depth and research, but I like to pick the roles that do, because I like to grow and change and learn about new cultures and ways of speaking and things like that. They do linger with you a lot. It's like saying goodbye to a best friend or something, or a best friend's got a prison sentence or died, or So they do linger with you. I was a little bit lucky in this respect, in respect of I was starting Dirty, which is about the corruption scandal, the Rampart corruption scandal, one of the biggest scandals in our generation, and so and this was with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Chris Fisher. And I didn't know how the hell was I going to shake Perry Smith. So luckily,
Interesting.
Raphael, the guy I was playing, I had a different name. I can't remember who I played, but the real guy's Raphael, because I read like the 700 pages of the court documents
Wow.
that I got on the download from a cop friend of mine. So I was like, how am I going to shake Perry? I mean, but thankfully I get to delve into this guy that's dark. Like, you know, Perry had a darkness to him as well. And so literally that last night of shooting, I was like, when we wrap, I'm going to dome myself. Because I figured that would be great. Because at least it's a physical shedding of sorts.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm switching time zones. I'm like 50s, 60s. And now I'm going to, whenever Rampart was. So I'm like, okay, we're going to check the dailies. And they're going to get the dailies in LA at like 3 a.m. It's like, cool. So they kept shooting. And I'm just waiting because I'm done.
Well, these are back in they're sending film over kind of days, not like some sort of digital, so yeah, they have to wait till LA has it kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
You had to send the film. You couldn't just do a you send it file.
No,
you couldn't do that.
No Dropbox. No
Dropbox, no thumb drive. No. They needed film. So they needed to see it to make sure that it was all what they wanted. And so they said, oh, we'll know by 2 a.m. Well, they still don't have it. 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Oh, we know. I'm like, really? What'd they say? Like, you're all good. I'm like, oh my God. Great. I left. I ran to the hotel. I literally ran. And I went upstairs and I just got the shearer, the little peanut. I was like, oh, just started peeling and shaving.
Right.
And just, I figured and it's hard because you kind of want to have a moment. Like when you see you've been with friends for a while, you kind of want to have a little hang session to say goodbye or something.
Sure.
So I didn't get that in this case, which I would have liked because it comes up at some point.
But that has to make some major difference because, like you say, different like the time period of a film changes so much. You get to change your appearance, which I always think is really interesting as an actor because sometimes does it become difficult to find Clifton Collins Jr. the guy when you're constantly sort of like, I got to get this haircut for this character, or they dye your hair for this character. You have this facial hair for that character. There's so many elements of that sometimes I wonder, like, is it hard to kind of wake up in the morning and go, like, what kind of haircut do I want to have? Or, what kind of thing do I want to do? Because, I've only ever really known you as you. So it's kind of like whatever hair length you have, it's always just you. So, but I know it's kind of based on a gig or something like that,
It is. I'm not a big fan of fake facial hair and wigs because it's so insanely difficult to make look authentically real. And I'm a stickler. I know the average audience member is not going to know it, but when I watch something like, that wig, or that mustache, or
I know.
So it's hard. Like, in regards to myself, I think I'm a little better at knowing who I am today. Not a lot. But back when I was doing those, I really didn't have a clue who the hell I was.
Well, as a young person, do we ever really know who we are anyway? We're always kind of struggling with that. Yeah.
And I'm working so hard to discover who these other people are.
And that's your job. Yeah. It's kind of not as important who Clifton Collins Jr. is because what's important is who the fuck is Perry Smith? You got to figure him out or whichever other character.
And as real artists, we always think that. As real artists, they're always more important than us, even though we're the tool.
Absolutely.
You're the conduit for the music. So
the vessel of sorts,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I was having this conversation last night. I was like, come on, man. It's like, how many times have you been on a plane and you're in deep turbulence and the only concern is, wait, did I wrap that film? Wait, do I got pickup shots? No, I finished that movie. Oh, it's cool. If it crashes, I hope it doesn't. But if it does, at least I finished the film.
Yeah, that's your concern is like, not that you're going to die, but did I finish the project? Am I going to put the project in jeopardy by my dying before it's wrapped?
I want my giant like James Dean had before he went. I don't want to have an unfinished film. Like that's bullshit. What kind of
some guy CGI your face on some other person so that they can finish the film? Yeah.
But there's a strange comfort. Like I am not fearful of any kind of turbulence. I don't care if the mask come down or anything. It's a ride. You got adrenaline. It's a rush.
Yeah.
And if it goes down, I'm gonna have more adrenaline. Like, give me another hit. But if I haven't finished the film, you will see the fear of God in my eyes. Like, please, I gotta finish this movie.
That's hilarious. The other thing I wanted to ask is, what do you find? Like, I can't imagine the difference between the little films you've done, like the film you did with Mike Judge, where you have I'm getting the two mixed up. The one with Mike Judge is Extraction. That one's amazing. But I'm thinking of the one where you had one arm. That's Sunshine's
Sunshine Cleaning.
Cleaning, yeah. That's another thing where I go, at what point, like at the end of the day, or like when you were preparing for that role, I know you well enough that you wrapped your arm up like that probably for a week before that actually started filming. At least a week. I'm sure you probably lived like that during the entire shoot. Like, no, I have to get
very well. That's a huge testament.
In the film, it's really convincing because you have literally, it's Amy Adams, Alan Arkin. Come on, it's an amazing cast. But you have one arm, and it's so convincing that if I didn't know you, I'd be like, you have two arms? Like if I met you after the fact, would just be like almost disappointed because it was so convincing.
So I was doing two films at that time. I was doing The Horseman with Jonas Ackerlund and Dennis Quaid.
Right.
And ZZ Zhang. And Patrick Fudgett. And then, so I was doing that in Winnipeg. Also, and it was 53 below zero then.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah.
So I sat down. These are the producers that did Little Miss Sunshine. So they won some Oscars and stuff.
That's
Peter
right.
Sharaf.
That's right.
Fantastic producers. And then so I read this thing, and so I did some research on people that are amputees. And I had a friend that was missing a leg from an accident. He lost his legs, and he's a professional runner.
Wow.
So I talked to my doctor, a therapist friend of mine, and I was like, "How are you gonna make this arm disappear?" And it wasn't clear in the screenplay if it was below the shoulder, an elbow. It just said it was missing his arm. So I'm like, so I had these questions before I go into a film, like an indie, especially where you don't have a lot of money, a lot of resources, and CG. So you got to look out for yourself too. And looking out for yourself is synonymous with looking out for the character.
Because you don't want to look, you don't want it to look fake. You don't want to look stupid. You don't want it to be like you personally take that much care about how you're going to do this, that it's going to be awesome when you do it. How did they put your arm? Like, where did you put your arm?
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
You want to have respect for people that are
of
real
course.
amputees.
Of course.
And that was my biggest goal, was like, I don't want them to be disappointed in what I did.
No.
So I asked her, and she didn't know at the time. She didn't know, like, I don't know. I didn't really think about it. I'm like, okay, well, the reason why I ask is because it's more common. It's very rarely you have a clean severage. There's usually a nub of some sort.
Sure.
The body doesn't know that the arm's missing. So if I went to hug you, like, what's up, Todd? Like, this little nub's going to move. How are we going to do that? She's like, I didn't really give it much thought. I'm like, okay. So we came up with some ideas. The producer, with a lot of help from producers, and thank God, because I probably wouldn't have done the film. And I love that role, and I know there's a lot of fans to that role. So
oh yeah,
they sent me a weird prosthetic to see if it would fit to Winnipeg. So I got photos of it. I'm happy to share those with you. So it's this weird prosthetic.
I think that should be the title of your book. They sent a weird prosthetic to Winnipeg. The Clifton Collins story.
I'm going to write that down, dude.
Yeah.
I'll give you credit for that, too.
No, that's all right.
Credit.
That's all you, baby. That's all you.
So they sent this weird plastic prosthetic. So I put my arm back, and I do this, and I do that. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I've got a T-shirt on or a shirt that looks like I got a nub, but it's still not going to move. It's not going to, It doesn't answer the question. And then there's a scene where all the models are in the room. I'm like, why are all those models in this room? I've got one arm. She goes, I don't really know. I'm like, okay, you're not helping me. Right. This is usually where I say no to a project, because I'm so afraid of so many elements that you don't know about, and you're the captain of the ship. I don't know where the icebergs are. Ooh, yeah, let me jump on that ship.
Yeah.
Love to jump on that ship.
Yeah, exactly.
Just an iceberg.
Yeah.
No, so the producers gave me calm, and they're fantastic producers, and I'm grateful that they did. So I came up with this whole backstory that in my rehabilitation, if I lost my arm, because it didn't say how I lost it, and again, she didn't have the answer. Actually, Kevin Reynolds from 187 gave me some suggestions when I called him. Like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And we came with this thing that maybe I was like a race car driver, motorcycle racer, and I fell.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And my arm got severed, and I was fascinated by watching the fingers move in the street and the race course and just tripping. So I'm like, that's a great idea. So when I was in Winnipeg I'll stay at the Fairmont. You know, those windows you can't open, they're double paned.
Totally.
So there's no fresh air.
No.
So here I am. I'm like, what? There's planes hanging in the hangar, and I figured I'm not going to have any memories of having built these planes. So let me build a couple model planes, and then I'll have them shipped out. So when I look at them up there, I'll know which one I built most recently. You know, like you can remember more details from the most recent album you did, the most recent song that you did.
Of course, yeah.
So
I love this attention to detail. This is so, like, it says so much about, like, all the questions I have about this craft. And I think that, you know, every person I talk to will have a different way of doing this, but I love that you thought about this. You thought about the last model he made. You know, it's or even how he lost his arm. I think a lot of people just go into, I mean, obviously an actor goes into a project going like, well, how did he lose his arm?
Not everybody.
How does that affect his character? Yeah, no, not everybody, exactly. But I love that you did. You're kind of like, how did he lose his arm? How does that affect the character that he is now? You know, that kind of thing is such a deep dive into who that person is.
And it lended itself to have an opportunity where, so there's a scene where I'm with a little kid and he's there and we're working on a model. I was like, we can work on a model. Cause I had a B-17, I think a B-17, B-19 and a B-52 bomber.
Cool.
One was a big one, a silver one was an Army one. That was the AC-130 gunship. That's what that was. It was a big one with the turrets on the side. And I knew everything about the plane. I studied the history of the 2 planes I built. One plane was my grandfather's favorite plane, like the B-19.
Again, I love that you had to go and, what kind of models are they going to be? I got to go down and figure out what they actually based on. And I love that. But go on.
So I'm sitting there. So Dennis Quaid is like convinced that I just want to huff paint, which is why I'm building
which he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
He's wrong about that. Never once kidding. Did I have silver paint on my mustache.
No, yeah.
Because that would have been a dead giveaway.
No, of course.
So I was telling him that I had to sneak out into the hallways because you can't open the windows, and I got a tiny little room and it's 50 degrees outside below zero. So so I'm sneaking off, making sure there's no cameras. I'm in the stairwell outside. I'm spraying as fast as I can before the paint freezes, and then bringing the piece back in.
Amazing.
And letting it dry under the light. I'm doing all this shit, and I'm assembling them in pieces: the wings, the fuselage, the seats. I got pictures of the interior I could send you too. It looks awesome.
Amazing.
So then when I'm there with the kid, I've got that Army, the one AC-130, and it's opened up, and I can show him and I can talk about the pieces if we improv and we need to. Like I have that facility because I've done that kind of research. And that lent itself to an authenticity. So that was fun. And to speak about the arm, I came up with this wardrobe idea, the tail, the glasses, the style, the hair. Like it was such a beautiful collaboration with hair and makeup. A beautiful collaboration with oh Jesus Christ. Is there any way we can pause for a second?
Yeah, go ahead. Hang on.
Just read the front.
And we're back. I love the change of background and everything. It's pretty impressive.
I had to do it. So the models, so the arm stuff and the hair and the makeup and everybody needed, it's an indie, so you just don't know who's going to be really prepared and who's not. And indies are fun because there's so much you just don't know what's going to happen. When you have these high level productions like the Pacific Rims of the world or the Traffics, there's so much money at stake that everything is accounted for and everybody involved generally competent.
Yeah.
Every now and then you'll have some incompetence, but on indies, you're always going to have somebody that's way out to lunch. Like, how did you get this job? Yeah, we can't afford. We've got $20 to make this whole movie.
Yeah, I bet. That actually was going to be my next question. But go ahead and finish your thought here. Go ahead.
So with the arm stuff, when I realized we decided that we're going to do it 2 ways. One was with the green sleeve. So they cut a fluorescent green sleeve that I had to keep like this. So in certain scenes where I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? How's everything going today? Oh, that's cool. Oh, good to see you. Oh, hey, sweetie, what's going on?
So when you actually kind of move this would move the.
It had to stay straight because they were going to take it out in post. So I can move this arm, and this arm's going to be gone. So, and then the other one was to get shirts slightly larger, and I was going to put my hand behind my back. Okay. Now I knew ahead. You always got to think on indies problems. You got to foresee problems to help make the day, to help your work be the best that it could be without being a diva and all this. So there's a nice way to do it. If the studio can't afford it, if you're a real artist, you're going to go out and pay for the shit yourself, which I always do. And I have no problem doing. I'm happy to do it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
How can you not?
Yeah.
I don't need to send you it. You don't need to pay me back or none of that. So I told Wardrobe, I said, hey, on these days when I've got my arm behind my back, we need to get a real serious belt because I want to be locking this arm back. And it hurts bad. So I would put my arm back and I'd be like, cow, like that. And then I would just be like, and then you take a breath because you're going to feel a lot of pain. And then when they're getting ready to shoot, I'd always pull it back like 5-10 seconds before. I said, okay, we're getting ready to go. We speeding? We're speeding. Okay, good. And nice strong belt so it doesn't come loose. And then you feel all the pain. So you just calm your mind, and like, and then they say action. You're like, oh, and then they yell cut. You're like, oh God, oh
God. Who knew acting was so painful?
So those are the two ways that we did it.
Crazy. Okay, well, we'll just kind of wrap this up pretty quickly, but that was going to be my next big thing, was to touch on the big difference between films like that, where you're largely, is it somewhat more punk rock? Because we're doing like Pacific Rim, Star Trek, any of those massive projects where it's, I can't even imagine, because the sets are like, in an indie film, you're actually shooting in a house. You're not on a set generally. You're not.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Can't afford it.
These are like you're walking into a spaceship or some kind of crazy.
Westworld,
Westworld as well. I mean, this whole like altered reality, but just the size of these budgets and I suppose the risk factor of like nothing is left. No I's are left undotted and T's left uncrossed. It's like, everybody has to know how this is going down so that when we edit this all together, it's going to be this big, huge thing. Where is there a certain amount of punk rock that happens in indie filmmaking that's kind of like, see how it goes, improv?
A lot.
Is there any improv that happens in the bigger things that you've done, or is it more stick to because guys like Guillermo del Toro, I'm assuming his script is probably fairly sacred. Soderbergh, I assume, is very sacred, is it?
Yes and no. Okay. Yes, they've all worked really hard. They hire people that come with ideas, that bring stuff to the table. They're very efficient in throwing everything that they do. And that's one of the most wonderful things. It's like jumping into a band and feel like you've always been a part of the band for like 20 years.
Sure.
It's your first time.
Yeah.
So with Soderbergh, he gave me carte blanche to cut my hair. It took me a week to come up with that hairstyle.
Yeah.
I'd throw out certain ideas and he would take them and then he'd ask me in the morning, like, hey, what are you thinking about today? Like, I know you got this scene, you're going, what are you going to do? Did you have some ideas? And I said, I sure did. So we just throw the ball.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? Same with Alan Arkin. Like, hey, kid, like, what do you think about this scene? I'm like, whoa, Alan Arkin's asking what I think about a scene. That's an indie. But that's artist to artist.
That's nuts.
Like JJ or Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo, very collaborative, so many different ways. If I've got some ideas, and you pitch them early. You don't pitch them on the day. You pitch them early because it's part of the process. They want to be prepared for your ideas.
Sure.
So when we shoot, it's not a surprise to anybody.
Right.
So that's the key, is jumping in early. And something like Pacific Rim, Guillermo's like, in my opinion, like our modern day Hitchcock. He's such an amazing human being, an amazing filmmaker. His passion for cinema is so insanely infectious.
Absolutely.
I connected Slash with him. I think he went down to his House of Horrors thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So and he loves ideas. So he called me early on. He's like, look, can we get the deals? I know the scripted, I'm writing this role just for you. I know it's not going to be up to par just yet. So if you could just be patient, I should have it done in like 2 weeks. If you're okay with this, can we start our negotiations now? Because these lawyers will take forever on these big films. I said, yeah, let's go. And he goes, okay, well, I'm going to send you this draft. And I really hope that you like it. And if you don't, I want you to tell me, because he's not an ego guy.
No.
And then I can tell him why I don't like it. And my reasons for liking or disliking it's going to come purely from the character, not from ego or any of that stuff.
Sure.
So I was able to contribute some stuff that way too.
That's
and
amazing.
Same with JJ and Westworld as well. But you got to do it early. You got to jump in because they want to be prepared.
Sure.
When you get that much money, be prepared with the new ideas. They're already written in. Everybody loves it. It works. It complements the material. Let's keep moving forward.
And that's, it comes out in the wash. So when I think about you, going toe to toe with Ed Harris or Alan Arkin or any of these like legends, I'm like, it's got to be so rad. Now, can we talk about? I mean, we'll wrap it up, but I think that because of the situation that we're all in currently, you were affected just like anybody else. You were about ready to go. Actually, at least you were kind of like, weren't in the middle of shooting something. You were actually heading to go shoot something. Can you talk about that at all? Or is that kind of like?
Absolutely. No, okay. Nightmare Alley. It's a remake of a Tyrone Power film from.
And that's a Guillermo del Toro, isn't it?
Guillermo del Toro. He wrote this fantastic role of Funhouse Jack. And it started out as a tiny little cameo. I crashed his star ceremony. And J.J. Abrams was one of the hosts. And I crashed it in hopes of getting a job and saying hello to my friend and honoring a legend. in hopes of, and I was crashing it. So I was like,
Right.
I hope I don't get tasered today. Like, I hope they recognize me. I hope security recognize me, and I hope I don't get tasered because there's so many people. And thankfully, JJ saw me. He was like, Cliffy! And then Guillermo turned around. I saw his eyes go, woo! It's like Clifferton. He likes to call me Clifferton for some reason. Clifferton, come on, bro. So I'm sitting at his table. I got this movie I'm doing. I'm like, really? He says, yeah, it's Nightmare Alley, and it's a great role. And most of it's cast already, but there's this role, this perfect role. It's a cameo. It's very important. It's through the whole movie. And there's no money, but it's very important throughout the whole movie. We'll get to hang out. We'll have fun. Please tell me you'll do it. I'm like, no money, and I get to hang out with you and do a film and a new film and play a cameo. Like, yeah.
Hell yeah.
I just said yeah. He goes, will you do it? And I said yeah. You said you're gonna do it. I'm like, how many more yeahs do you want? I mean, you want me to sign this napkin? I heard that worked. I'm hanging out with you. Of course I want to hang out with you.
So this is a good example of how you have to have your face shown. Like once in a while, you got to go out and make sure people are seeing you so they go, hey, Clifton, you'd be perfect for this thing. Otherwise, out of sight, out of mind to some degree. Oh, he had me in mind for it. And it was a tiny and you'd already been in Pacific Rim, so he knew you to be, you know, a reliable character. Do you remember sitting in like Boulder or Denver? I can't remember where it was, but you, myself, Slash, I think it was basically the conspirators and Slash and the gang sitting in a movie theater watching Pacific Rim.
Oh yeah.
And it was I just laughed because it's dark and we're sitting kind of towards the back. Uh-huh. And it's like the guy who's on the screen is here and Slash is here, and no one was aware of that. I thought that was brilliant.
That was pretty funny.
Do you need to bail?
Yeah, I got to take care of a question real quick, but I wanted to answer your other question.
Go ahead.
Can you hang tight for a second?
Yeah, hang on. And we're back. Sorry. Go ahead.
We were talking about Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
Oh wait, so to speak to Nightmare Alley, he's creating this character. I read the book. It was around Christmas time that I started prepping. I got my hands on the book. I got the hands on the original movie. I'm trying to find this character, and I realized he's created something new. And then he asked me if I was a fan of the blues. I said, yeah, because you play the blues. I said, sure. And he says, how about Bull Cars? I said, yeah, what song? And he goes, I Get the Blues. Like, oh, awesome. I don't do any of these.
Right.
So,
which is another key to acting, is just say yes to things and figure it out after the fact. Yeah.
So I canceled all my Christmas plans, all my parties. I'd just been isolating on this independent film that I executive produced and helped write, Jockey, which will be out soon, that we're getting ready to sell soon.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic, beautiful film. So I was isolating for 2 months, not speaking to anybody. And then I come here, and because I committed to playing this blues song, and I told them I could, there's no failing, there's just doing. So I stopped everything. Slash helped me find this old 1920s capo, an original capo.
Cool.
Beautiful capo.
Awesome.
And I learned the whole song. I learned the whole song, the solo, the riffs. And Bo Carter was different because his bass lines, he was typically known to not be on time with his bass line. That was kind of his niche. One of the few. You know, he's friends with Robert Johnson and Charlie Patton. As a trio, sometimes they'd go out and moonlight and play places.
Awesome.
All this stuff I learned about the blues. So I was just getting ready to learn how to play it with all the lyrics now, and then go into the studio to record, and then COVID hit.
Yeah. So but at least you were still at home when that happened, right? You weren't like, it's shooting in Toronto or something?
Yes.
Yeah. So it could have been worse. You could have been in the middle of shooting. And I mean, there's a million projects, you know, tours, concerts, films, television shows that have The Walking Dead is like, they didn't get to air their finale this last season because it's just sitting there in post. And I'm like, oh my God, what a crazy time. But I'm really excited. So that will just fire up hopefully after this is all said and done.
Let's go back in September right now.
Great.
Yeah, so I should get into the studio soon to record the song.
Oh, I can't wait. That'll be, you got to send me that. I'm really excited.
Well, I'll be calling you before I send it to you. I mean, Slash been helping me. David Saw's been helping me. Some other musicians that come by and help me. Chris Flores, yeah.
Exciting. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you taking the time. This is going to be
anytime, really dude. Cool. It's fun. I love hanging out with you.
I could do this for like another 2 hours, just kind of like, I would chronologically, like, I just find it like your ascension into like, well, it's just that idea of getting an agent, getting headshots, all that stuff to me I find fascinating. And then all of a sudden you're a working actor, you're doing really like high quality stuff. I find that fascinating. And I'm always proud to know you.
Thanks, brother. Same. Yeah, we'll do follow-ups too, man. Whenever you're ready, you let me know.
Let's do it. We'll find something.
I would love to.
Absolutely. Okay, man. Enjoy your day.
Family. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you,
man. Love you, brother.
Bye-bye.